So far this year, California has seen close to 7,000 fires across the state. This year's fire season isn't even close to over yet, and already more land has burned than in all of 2019, according to the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection. Just last month, as fires swept across the Big Basin Redwood State Park, fears began to rise that the majestic coastal redwood trees, some of which are more than 2,000 years old, would be burned to a crisp. However, after the fires cleared, it was discovered that, remarkably, most endured the fiery blaze. Close to 40 million people live in California, and each wildfire season, residents hope that the fires aren't as destructive as in previous years. In November of 2018, 85 people were killed in the Camp Fire in the northern part of the state. It was the deadliest fire in California history, destroying nearly 19,000 buildings and destroying almost the entire town of Paradise. Back in February 2015, Kendra Atleework's small hometown of Bishop saw massive damage after fires swept through the area. Bishop is in the eastern part of California along the Nevada border, tucked between Death Valley and Yosemite National Park.
In 2015, my childhood neighborhood burned down in February, and that was in the heart of the California drought. And normally, when I was a kid, we were under multiple feet of snow being partway up the mountain in the winter, and we would even have to evacuate for avalanche warning, and we'd have to come down to the town of Bishop, where I live now, and stay with friends when there was an avalanche threat. And yet this February of 2015, the neighborhood burned down, and I was used to wildfire in summer, as all of us in the West are, but I wasn't used to wildfire in winter, and that's what's so scary is we get these high winds in California and the West, and then if we don't have precipitation and snow, we have these winter winds, and they can really fan these scary fires, which is what happened, and we're regularly over 100 degrees in Bishop nowadays, and it's always been a hot place. But I think we're just seeing more extreme swings. We're seeing longer and harsher droughts, and then we're seeing wilder storms when we do get storms.
In recent years, the fires have grown even deadlier, destroying thousands of homes, killing hundreds, and leaving a trail of destruction with no end in sight. The deadly combination of dry, crisp leaves from little rainfall mixed with the extreme heat is fueling these massive flames all throughout the state. And as Atleework points out, the fire season is lasting longer. What once used to span from May through October is now extending into the winter months.
I'm definitely nervous about it. We all are. That's kind of what everybody's talking about these days is, gosh, can we imagine a future in which it's even hotter, in which it's hot for a longer part of the year, in which we're trapped inside by the smoke nowadays? It's often in the red, unhealthy zone, and we have swamp coolers which don't filter the air like AC, so we can't even really run our coolers without bringing that dirty air in. And it feels very scary and constricted, and you walk around at night and the smoke is swirling under the street lamps.
Today, Atleework lives back in her hometown of Bishop and is a writer and the recent author of the memoir titled Miracle Country. She loves living in the mountainous, rugged landscape that is Bishop, but says it's a trying time for the community in the wake of a global pandemic mixed with record heat and sweeping wildfires.
In my community, there's definitely a desire to sort of dig in and help each other out as this kind of thing happens. And with the pandemic, we really saw that. We really saw people helping their neighbors and sort of being in it together for better or for worse. So that's been sort of a silver lining.
Stephen Pine is another Western U.S. resident that's no stranger to pitching in when disaster hits. He's an expert on wildfires, having spent 15 summers as a seasonal firefighter in the U.S. National Park Service. Today, he's an emeritus professor in the School of Life Sciences at Arizona State University, and his latest book on wildfires is titled The Still Burning Bush. Pine has studied the history and evolution of fires and says throughout time, they've been ever present.
In the 19th, early 20th century, we had much larger fires than we've seen recently. And this is well before climate change, in fact, even at the end of the Little Ice Age. But it was all powered by logging debris / land clearing. So there was so much available fuel around that was powering it. And then we went into a relatively benign climate. The land is recovering from much of the havoc and excess of the earlier times. And that was the period in which I was involved, and we're dealing with mostly small fires, so you try to catch them very quickly. Over the last 30 years or so, climate change is replacing all of the logging slash that had powered the earlier era. So we're seeing an escalation in the number of large damaging fires. Also, we've been recolonizing what had been rural landscapes with an urban outmigration, so that's putting more communities at risk, so urban sprawl.
It's well known that human consumption and development have permanently altered the landscape. The constant burning of fossil fuels, mass deforestation, and electrical lines spanning every mile of land all add up to lasting consequences, says Pine.
The number of fires, large fires being set by power line, it's particularly insidious because what causes the lines to fail are high winds, and those are the conditions that allow a fire, once started, to spread very quickly beyond control. So it's sort of the worst combination possible.
So, according to Pine, what does the future hold for the state of California? By his predictions, it's, sadly, a gloomy outlook.
I think the near future is going to look pretty much like the near past, except intensified. There's really nothing that we can do in a matter of a couple of years to reverse it. We can keep houses from burning and communities from burning. We know how to do that. It's mostly a result of ember storms igniting multiple houses, and then it spreads as an urban fire. We know how to handle that. We just need to decide to do it. We can certainly end power line fires or get that to a minor component. These are technical issues. Other than that, we're talking about how we live on the land. That's going to be a much harder one. And even as we begin ratcheting down, which I hope we do very quickly, our fossil fuel combustion, a lot of it is baked into the system for a long time to come.
On a state, national, and global scale, Pine says that while the science is there, it takes time for government systems and officials to catch up.
The assumption was that science would tell us what to do, and then politics will rally and provide the resources, and we'll do it. And we are simply unable to move at that scale, that quickly, that large, and we're going to have a lot more kinds of fires of the sort we've been seeing. And I think they just accept that, and they're going to work with it to salvage something out of it for the future.
While the short-term outlook may look grim, small changes in the right direction are better than doing nothing. Kendra Antliwork argues that after years of worsening wildfires and droughts, California residents aren't just sitting idly by. Many millions recognize the impact of climate change and are taking active steps to find new lifestyles and call on state officials to take action and look at the science.
California, I think, is uniquely positioned to be a leader in this regard. I think that's in Miracle Country. I talk a lot about some of the aspects of California culture that can be both good and bad, like our optimism of innovative spirit as a state has a lot of potential to sort of lead the way for the rest of the world, the country and world, when it comes to dealing with climate change, and not necessarily just coming up with tech fixes to things, that as well, but also reframing how we think about how we live in our homes and reframing how we think about consumption, since our innovative spirit as a state is really going to get put to the test.
California is one of the states leading the way in finding innovative solutions to these growing climate issues and extreme natural disasters. From conserving water to switching to clean energy, the state is taking large strides to reduce the human carbon footprint. Hopefully, these efforts add up to create lasting change in the decades to come. To find out more about wildfires, their impact, and our guests, Kendra Antliwork and Stephen Pine, visit viewpointsradio.org. You can also find both of their books, Miracle Country and The Still Burning Bush, online and in bookstores. For more behind the scenes, check out Viewpoints Radio on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. This segment was written and produced by Amira Zaveri. I'm Gary Price. Coming up on Viewpoints.
It was a disaster on so many levels. A meteorological disaster, a political disaster, a response disaster.
The fury of powerful hurricanes. Then,
every Kickstarter project is like on its own too small for these big businesses to care about. But it ends up that collectively we can make a lot of noise.
The benefits of crowdfunding online. I'm Marty Peterson.
And I'm Gary Price. These stories in depth on your public affairs magazine, Viewpoints.